Hey, family, welcome to episode 18 of my enrolled agent career. This week, we're leaving Philly and we're headed to Detroit. My guest on tonight is someone that I met in the online space, I would say pre COVID. It's all kind of running together now. But we were in an online community together, and I don't even know if she remembers this. The very first digital product that I ever created to sell. So before you all saw me writing articles and in different publications, I wanted to create this ebook and I needed test readers. And this person raised their hand and said, "I'll take a look at it for you." And I've never forgot that. I've always appreciated it and their genuineness and willingness to help. Well, fast forward, we're not in the same online community anymore, but I have appreciated seeing the growth in her business and her journey and her being on different platforms. This person has been in the tax industry for 25 years, started their current firm 10 years ago, and then went full time with it in 2020. They are a mom, Detroit native, and Air Force veteran. Tonight, I would like for you to help me welcome Miss Katrina Martin, EA, or you may know her as Katrina the Advisor, to the podcast.
Thank you, Timalyn.
You are so welcome. And I apologize to the listeners. And sorry, Katrina, because I'm going to go back a little bit. I just assume that everybody can see us, and I forget some people are listening. If you're new here, my name is Timalyn Bowens, and I'm America's favorite EA, the host of the podcast. But tonight, we're shining the light on Katrina. So, again, Katrina, thank you for being here. Thank you for being genuine and authentic and somebody that I'm happy to have here on the platform with me tonight.
Thank you, Timalyn. It's my pleasure to be here. I forgot about your ebook. I loved it. Thank you. That shows you how you never know how they just raising your hand sometimes will bring about things for you. So thank you for reminding me of that.
Yes, indeed. I think we met a little bit later in person at the Tax and Accounting Summit in
Yes,
2021 in Florida.
absolutely. That seems so
Yeah,
far back, but it felt like yesterday, and then it seems so far away at the same time.
I know, but it's like I
Fun.
said, it's been amazing to see your growth in the industry and see you on different platforms. They're like, "Oh, I know her. You go,
Oh,
girl."
same here. Same here. I love reading your articles. I'm like, there's Timalyn.
Well, thank you. So tonight, like I said, we are shining the light on you. I want everyone else to see how authentic and genuine you are as well. Because it wasn't something overnight where you get to be a guest on a podcast like Anthony O'Neill's Table, right? It took time and grit to get there. Um, so for you, how did you find out about the enrolled agent designation and what made you decide to sit for the exam?
I found out about it surprisingly through a vendor trying to sell me service. They were trying to sell me. They were trying to sell me a resolution service. I don't know if I can say their name. Canopy. They had reached out to me about their service, and they were basically like, tax prep. It's work, but how you really going to grow your firm. This is commoditized work where a lot of people can do it. It's a low hanging fruit where everybody can enter. So the competition. So how do you plan on expanding your business? And I had never even thought of. I was like, well, what do you mean? So that was probably 12 years ago. It was a long time ago, and I remember that stuck with me. And I started researching on it at the time. Signed up for a bunch of different courses and different systems and stuff. But I was all, like I said, I was always working. So, I would start it and stop it, miss the deadline, start it, stop it, until I really focused, until I really said in 2021, like, I'm going to get this thing. I'm just going to hunker down and knock it out. But yeah, it had been probably, I think I found out from somebody else trying to sell me a service that mentioned it to me, and they turned the light on for me.
That's cool. It's just so interesting to me. Like, I went through all of college. I worked at a big CPA firm. I never had heard about the EA exam.
Wow.
You were in the industry not 25 years at the time, but close to 20.
Well, yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It is absolutely crazy how we can hold the highest designation that the IRS awards taxpayers, and so few people know about it.
It's crazy. That's one of the reasons I'm like, I always try to get the word out there about what this role really means, because I feel like a lot of people do wear that imposter hat a lot of time when they don't have licensing and credentials and all of these things, because the first thing, if you're talking on the phone with a prospect, the first thing that they're going to ask you about is, are you a CPA? Are you this? Are you that? And if you don't have those things, you're like, even though you have all this knowledge and you can definitely help and assist with what they're talking about, 9 times out of 10, you just don't feel confident in not being able to say, yes, I have this, or yes, I have that. And so, just having that backing, additional backing to kind of cease that part of the conversation so you can get to what people really need. It's crazy that this is not talked about more. So I'm excited that you're getting the word out. And I feel, and that's one of the things whenever I'm doing an interview or talking about it, I always bring it up and talk about what that licensing really means.
Mm-hmm. So, for you, having all of that experience in the industry prior to passing the EA exam, how did that change your firm with having that new authority that the EA license gives?
Yeah. So it actually gives you this confidence that you don't feel like you don't know that you're lacking until you get it, right? Like
Mhm.
it cuts down a lot of conversations, because like, when we're doing discovery calls with potential clients, the first question is, are you a CPA? And it's like, no, I'm not a CPA. I'm an EA, which is I'm licensed by the IRS. I don't work for them, but I'm licensed through them. This is the highest licensing that the IRS authorizes, and I'm licensed to work nationwide. And that's like, oh, now let's get to business, right? So that kind of cuts that conversation. People like, oh, I didn't know that existed, So that kind of helps you segue that conversation. So you already are the authority in that space. So you're not trying to convince them to work with you. A lot of times in this, once you get the licensing, you're really trying to weed out the right customers that you want to work with.
Mhm. Whew, there are a couple of places I could go here.
Yeah, go for it.
Let me go back a little bit. So, you've been in the industry 25 years, started your current firm 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but you didn't go full time till 2020.
Yeah.
For you, what was it that was like, you know what? I can do this full time?
Yeah, so I had it like when we were talking, I was like, this is my third life. So that first half was, I was in the Air Force, mom, wife, all those things. Second half, I went and got, finished college, started working in advertising. So I was an advertising executive for years, right? And so this was just a side hustle, right? I started this in 2000, 2002, I got divorced and did this as a side hustle just for extra money. And it ended up being just like, oh wow, this is actually, I love this. This is so, it was always so it's just something that I did, but it wasn't something that I was still doing my full-time career path, corporate America move. And so I was so focused on growing that way that this was always in the back burner, but I was always preparing taxes, always advising people, always doing this. And then in 2015, I was like, I think this is gonna be my next chapter. I think it's time and I need to professionalize this and actually open up a firm and do all of these things. So in 2015, that's what I did. And I started committing more time to it. And I think that's about the time when I started trying the EA path originally, but just never had the time to actually commit to studying and all of those things, because it does take, you really do lose about 4 months of your life 4 or 5 months of your life if you're trying to knock this out fast. And so I did that in 2015, opened the firm up. And it was always like I was competing between corporate job and this job, especially when I had to travel, especially if it was tax season. And so in 2020, it just kind of, COVID happened and our phones blew up because everybody thought we were unemployment specialists, PPP specialists, EIDL specialists. So we were wearing all these hats because people needed answers and nobody knew. So I was working from home at the time and just started digging in. And I'm like, you know what? It might be time to do this thing full time because this is not a hobby anymore. This is not a side gig anymore. This is something that I really, really, I'm being torn in so many different ways. And so I resigned from my corporate job, which I loved and had been doing forever. And it was hard to walk away from the money, to be honest with you. It was like, this business wasn't making six figures at that time, but I was, so it was like hard to walk away from the stability of it, the benefits of it, the money of it. And I had worked to build this career up and went through this trajectory, right? And so it was kind of hard to walk away, but it was calling me. And it was like, it's like something's in the back. I couldn't shake it. And so I had wrote my resignation letter. It had been written for like maybe 2 years, and I just changed.
I thought you were going to say 2 weeks.
It had been written for a while. I just kept changing the date on it, like no. And then I kept getting scared. I was like, wait, I gotta get medical benefits. Wait, I gotta do this. I gotta do that. Mm-hmm. And then I need to buy a house so I can make sure I got this guaranteed income. I need to get another car before. So I was lining up. I'm a planner, right? So I was lining up all the things that I needed to have done. And then one day it was just like, send the dang on letter. Send the dang. So I resigned. Of course, they tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, you sure? Is there anything we can do? And I'm like, no, it's time. It's time. And I haven't regretted it one day. And once you do go full time in this space, because I know there's probably a lot of the listeners who are kind of in that same boat, trying to transition from a 9 to 5 or trying to figure out if that's what they really want to do. Am I going to be able to survive? And I can say you're going to thrive as long as you continue to treat it like you're, the same respect that you gave your job, you need to give your business and then some.
Oh my goodness. You queued me up to stand on a pedestal and start preaching, and I'm not going to do it. I did not pay her to say that. But, I think people see, like I said, I remember when I saw you on Anthony O'Neill's podcast, but people don't see everything it took before you got there, the connections you had to make before you got there.
Yeah.
We're on here smiling, laughing, talking about our careers. It's not always easy and sunshiny, but we had to make the decision to make the same commitment to ourselves and our business that you did when you were working in advertising.
Yeah, got it.
You have more flexibility, but you still have to have the discipline because now you got to eat.
There you go. And now you're responsible for all those things that you didn't realize your company was paying for you. The benefits, the payroll taxes, the 401k contributions, the health benefits, all of those things were costs that were roped into your, not just your salary, but on the back end that employers are paying. Now you're responsible for that for yourself. So if you were making 6 figures in your corporate job, you almost need to make 50% more than that, right? Because you got to cover those costs yourself too. So figure those things in. But if you have the dedication and you know that you can be consistent and really apply yourself fully, because a lot of times you do things and it's out of your own pocket, but you know that you see the ROI on the back end. I've flown myself to podcasts. I've flown myself to conferences, and I've had people that, like, are they paying you? I'm like, no, you don't get paid up front a lot of times. Sometimes the benefit is the ROI that you're going to get on the back end of it, right? So sometimes you have to invest in yourself. I spend so much money on coaching programs, mentorships, masterminds, all of these things, but I'm willing to do that. And that number that I'm spending keeps going up because you keep trying to elevate yourself. But here's the thing, you always get it back in more ways than one. whether it's something that you've learned, something that you heard, it comes back. And so that's why it's so important to put yourself in rooms where you're going to get something out of it. Really be there and be a sponge. I'm sitting there listening so intently a lot of times because I'm like, okay, I got to go back. I got to do this. I got to implement this. I got to do these things. So really being mindful and being your own biggest hero. You got to coach yourself in this a lot of times because you got to be willing to make the investment to take yourself out from where you're at to the next place. Nobody's going to do it for you. This is not a dress rehearsal. Life is happening, right? I say that all the time because I think sometimes people always say, I'll do it later, or I'll get to that later. And is there a later?
Right.
The moment is right now. So you really have to seize it. And a lot of times we try to delay our gratification. And it's like, that opportunity might not be there when you look around later on. If it's there right now, you might need to go ahead and grab it.
Yes, beautiful. But I tell people like, well, it's easy for you. It's like, but what you see is easy. I built the habit. Like, there are times I didn't want to show up on that YouTube channel. There are times I did not want to write that article. Or I wanted to go watch the movie with my husband. I wanted to go out with my family where I had to be like, I have to get this done. I owe it to me.
There you go.
I don't want to go back to the firm. I want to stay right here so I can keep the flexibility.
Absolutely. I mean, we work, I think a lot of times people see you as an entrepreneur and they're like, oh, you get to work when you want to, you get to do these things. To some degree, yeah, but clients expect you to be available during certain hours. So you do have to be available during those hours. Can we work anywhere a lot of times? Yeah, we can, as long as we got secure internet service and all of those things. However, you're responsible for the meal. So you got to fish to catch to have the meal later on, right? And so knowing that, how flexible is it? Because a lot of times, it doesn't end at 5 o'clock. With our corporate jobs, when we punched out, a lot of times we were out, not in advertising a lot of times, but a lot of times we were done. But a lot of times when we're done with working on client work during the daytime is when we go do the deliverables in the evening and start doing the CEO work in the evening. So we really have to be mindful about our calendars and time management because 24 hours it gets eaten up with a lot of things, and we have to control what part of it's going to be beneficial to the business and what part is going to take away from it. And of course, we want to, spend all our time with our family and our friends and enjoying ourselves. But at the end of the day, a lot of times we really do have to button down and say, these are my hours. These are the hours I'm focusing on the business. These are the hours I'm recording. These are the hours. So we really have to be diligent about our time management because it can get away from you. People will pull you in a million different places and you have to shut your ringer off sometimes because people are like, oh, she's home. I'll just calling chat. And it's like, hold on, I'm working on something right now. Even though I might not look like I'm working on something. I'm working on something in my head right now. So
yeah, baby, I gotta go.
Yeah, so we have to be even more focused than we do sometimes when we're working for other people because we have our scope of work with those jobs. When you're the business owner, all the work is yours.
Thank you so much because you wrapped that up nice and beautifully. But that brings me back to 2020, 2021. So COVID was crazy. If you know, you know. And it was one of those times when technology is great till it's not because I've only been in the industry since 2011. Which kind of seems like a long time now.
It does. Yeah, time is moving.
A lot of things have evolved, but I feel like that was the first time, and maybe it's because people were at home and not work, but taxpayers got the information as soon as we got the information and they wanted a translation. And it's like, I haven't even read it yet. I don't even know what you're talking about yet. How did you balance that and still being able to make the time to study for the exam? Because there was no such thing as part-time tax firm in
No,
2020.
it was crazy. What a time to be alive. When that
Right.
documentary comes out, it's gonna be something. I don't, you know what? It was 24/7. And I think a lot of us were, I know me, I was operating in fear a lot. You know, we were so scared, we didn't know what the heck was gonna happen, you know. So you really wanted to help your fellow people that were calling because how do I get this? How do I get that? And you know, if they're calling, they don't know where else to go, you know. So,
Mhm.
and services were answering phones a lot of times. And so it just ended up being, I don't know. I think it was just, I, the test was tough. I had a study group, which was really good. So outside of the classes that I was taking, I had a study group and we met and we were very focused and we were all trying to do it and we were trying to fast track it. So we were trying to get it before the year ended. And so we ended up, and I feel like you know, you have to motivate. Iron sharpens iron, right? So
Mhm.
we were really pushing each other. Go ahead and book all your tests. Go ahead and do these things. Go ahead. And so I booked my tests 3 weeks apart.
Ooh, that's
So
a faith walk.
even though even though I wasn't prepared for any of them, but I knew I had 3 weeks to gear up for them, and it forced me to just dig in for that. So you have to know your own study habits. You have to know how you learn and apply it that way. I'm good with really cramming, you know, cramming information and understand. So that worked for me. Some people like to have that slow roll where they read through everything. I'm only reading the high points and then I'll go back later and dig in, right? And then it's really about test taking abilities. Yeah, I've taken so many tests. I kind of can. I'm good at test taking, right? I know I got to eliminate two look good, and I got to eliminate those. And so, but the thing is I it was really tough. It was if I had to do it now, I probably couldn't do it. uh, but we were isolated, so there wasn't a lot of things open. So you really
Mhm.
couldn't do anything other than work. So I think that probably played a big part into it. It was just like there was no entertainment or anything else happening, so it was just educate.
And did you use a specific, what do they call them, EA review system?
Yeah, so Krista Tyus had you know Krista. So Krista had a program at the time. We were in her program, but we were also using what were we using? I think they've changed their name since we use Fast Forward. We so like I said, we had a study group, so we all had our own systems and we would use
Okay.
those systems to test on each other. So we used Glime, somebody had Fast Forward, and then somebody had a third one that we really liked. I can't
Was
remember
it
the name.
Passkey?
Passkey. So we use Passkey quite a bit. I think they've changed their name, haven't they?
Hawk International
Hawk
now
International's
has
not.
the license to Passkey.
Yeah. So Passkey was the one we used the most. We use Fast Forward. We kind of ranked them, right? So we were like, oh, this one does this. This one focuses on that. This one is the, you know, so this is the Cadillac, you know. So we ranked them, but we use them all to test on and just to drill each other on them. So the night before anybody in the group was going to take a test, we would do a cram session with them and test them. So you really, if you can get some cheerleaders or some supporters behind you, that is really key because I don't know if you know, I think I still would have been able to do it, but it wouldn't have been as fun, you know. And then we passed all at the same time. And then sometimes, don't get me wrong, some people in the group would take the test, they wouldn't, you know, wouldn't pass it. And so, you know, they would come back and we'd be like, you know, we talk them through what parts did you struggle with? Where did you feel like you were strong and that you realized when you got there, I don't know what the heck this is, right? And so it was really, really, I think that part was really key to making it work because we're like, reschedule it right now and then go back in next week and do it again while it's still
Ooh.
fresh, you know? While it's still fresh, so you don't have to go all the way back to the drawing board. Go back to the areas that you're weak while it's fresh, and then go ahead and do it again next week. Because if you wait, you're gonna miss the deadline. You're gonna start dragging your feet.
I mean, that's that's the power of community. And like you said, iron sharpens iron. Fortunately, I passed all three on the first go around, but I can't
Thank
imagine.
God.
I can't imagine like those people, like you said, your personal cheerleaders community being like, all right, scheduled for next week. I was like, who? Where?
And that's what a lot of times that's what would happen. They're like, wait a minute. It's like, I mean, unless you got, like, if you were so close to that number, I think it's 105 that you need. If you got 100, you go back. You missed a couple questions, right? So go back while it's still good. Those areas that you sat there and ponder, we can focus. We can help you with those. But I think the biggest thing is just making sure that you're prepared. You cannot go in there and try to wing that test. I don't care how many years of experience you had. I had decades under my belt when I took it, and it was still something that if I hadn't studied and really worked on it, I would have went in there and not passed either.
Yeah, and I think people mistake, there is nothing like hands-on experience, but the test isn't, it's the foundation to what you do every day, but it's not what you do every day.
Absolutely. And I felt like as we were taking the test, I thought that the people who had the least amount of experience had the biggest benefit. Because I noticed when we were in our study groups, a lot of times the people that had a lot of experience, they would always say, well, in my office, we do this, or in my experience, it does this. It's like, we know how real world works, but we're talking about this test, right? So this is the IRS's test. What do they want you to say? We know it may be different in your office, but or how you've experienced it, but what is this? What's the book version of this? And I feel like sometimes if you've got too much experience, you can't open your mind up to learning something different, right? And so you really have to go in a blank page, because this is, like I said, it is not the same. And then I think the one thing that it kind of tripped me up with the test that I thought was so interesting. They have these elaborate stories. Like there's a lot of story problems.
Yes.
And these are like soap opera story problems. They're like, and so and so got divorced on such and such a date, and yada yada yada. And they'll throw all these things in and dates and times. And then you get to the question, and people get so distracted on this story that they don't realize it has nothing to do with the question. It's just to throw you off. And so I used to say, stop getting wrapped up in these stories and just answer the questions. They have a lot of things in that story building that doesn't have anything to do with the question, but they throw it in there. And then some of the question answers align with that, but it's all simply to throw you off.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to really focus and really, I'm like, so whenever we were doing study group and people got, well, why does she do? I'm like, don't read that. Don't even get off into that. Go to the question.
I do remember that. I'd be like, now what does Jose and Eduardo starting a business have to do with the depreciation? That's basis. And I'd be like, that's the red herring.
It is. It is. I'm like, they have, so who wrote these things? They're very dramatic.
So now you're talking about the study group that you had and things that you took away from that. Now you're helping other people to prepare for the exam. I'll let you speak to that because I don't want to get the facts messed up.
Yeah. So I have a separate firm that me and 3 other EAs here in Michigan have started. It's called EA Leadership Academy. We're preparing other people to become EAs because I feel like this is, like we talked about early on, this is something that's not really known about, but it can change your life. It does put you into a different earning category because you're licensed, right? And then you could do additional services, representation, resolution, all of those things, which changes also your price point as well. But we opened the EA Leadership Academy. We have our first training coming up October 20th through October 24th. It's going to be, there's 2 portions of it. One is in person. You can come here in Michigan and actually sit down with us over 5 days, or you can do the virtual route and just join via join via our virtual system to do the 5 days with us that way. We're partnered with Glime as the training EA testing material. So you'll get fully everything that you need. But if you go to ealeadershipacademy.com, well, there's a lot of FAQs there and link to ask questions and to sign up if you want to join. Again, it's October 20th through the 24th of this year.
Awesome. And I will make sure, just in case people are multitasking, because I know I do sometimes when I'm listening to a podcast, that we get that link from you to the website. For people who are interested in signing up, they can do that right from the show notes.
Thank you.
Right on there. Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about, you mentioned it puts you in a new earning category. For your firm that you started 10 years ago, what kind of service offerings do you offer for taxpayers? Because that's a question I get a lot. Like, do I have to do representation? And I promise I'm not going to stand on the soapbox today on this one. Like, if you earn the right, you should at least explore it. You could have just been preparing taxes. But what does that look like in your firm with your service offerings?
Yeah, so our primary service is tax planning, so we do a lot of strategy and planning, helping to lower taxes legally for people who had these huge tax bills. It kind of lines up well with resolution as well, because if you've had a big tax bill 9 times out of 10, once you get it cleared up, if you don't change those habits, you'll end up right back there again. So the planning helps with that and helps you to bring in, implement strategies and things like that that'll help lower those things for you. So we do tax prep, tax planning, advisory service, because a lot of times when we sit down, and talk to business owners, a lot of times you'll find that things are, the behind the scene is real sloppy, right? Like it's like sometimes there is no LLC, sometimes the LLC is lapsed, sometimes it's the wrong LLC. So it's costing on the back end, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So a lot of times it's having somebody get in there, look at everything and see what's wrong and reposition things to put it in the right perspective. That's what we do. And then we recommend doing that every 2 years, because as a business owner, you're not going to stay at the same income level. Those income levels matter with how you're taxed on, right? So we get in there and revisit that to see, okay, yeah, this worked when you started out, a single member LLC, but now you're making $150,000 and up a year. Okay, we may need to restructure this. Maybe you need to be an S corp. Maybe you need to be a C corp. What's the long term? So we talk about what's the long term goals for the business, and then we can advise on how to do that. So those kind of go hand in hand with the representation, because, like I said, a lot of times if you get somebody out of the hole, if they don't change the habits that led them there, they'll end up right back there again.
Absolutely. So you're coming in more so as the partner with the business owner, like you said, because you're talking about long-term goals. Like,
yes,
because you have those people who are like, hey, I want to stay at 150 every year, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But maybe we shouldn't implement these strategies that Uncle Johnny told you about, because those don't fit over here with your business.
Yeah, we do a lot of it. Our primary thing is planning and advisory services, because a lot of times, like I said, and I say this all the time, a lot of times, whatever your business is, that's where your talent is, right? It may not be to be behind the scenes things. If you're a baker, you can bake. But does that mean that you also know how to set up the financial structure of the business properly, so you're taxed at the right rate and not overpaying, And so a lot of times, no, you're focused on making sure that your front of the house runs properly. So what we do is we help people make sure that the back of the house is set up properly, so they can keep the money that they're getting up front.
Right. What business owners want. And I like the way you put that. I always tell people, because I'm focused mostly on representation, like, there's no shame here. Like, you are phenomenal at what you do. Absolutely. I'm not expecting you to be a tax expert. If I take my car up to Lincoln, I don't want any shade or tea, because I don't know what's going on under the engine. That's their job.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, I just had a client recently we took on there. We're doing their accounting, And so we were sent over their uncategorized expenses, and some of them were personal expenses mixed in with their business. And they were apologizing about it. I'm like, you don't have to apologize. This is your business. I'm just telling you what it is. I'm just going to advise. So I'm not a hand slapper. You know, a lot of times people are like, you know, are you going to be mad at me? I'm like, never. Tell you it was right or wrong. I'm never going to be mad about it. Because you know when you try to do, if you're trying to do better and you're bringing people in, that's what we come in for. Or a lot of times people think they got to clean stuff up before they involve us. If you knew how to clean it up, you wouldn't need us, right? So
Right.
call us and then we'll clean it up, and then we'll get back on track. But no, don't try to clean stuff up before you reach out to us, because or avoiding things. You know, people get those stacks of IRS letters, and then until that certified one comes or until the bank account is frozen, it's like now it's the 911. But when the first letter comes, it's the 911 to reach out and get some representation right there.
So I have a question that has kind of been brewing.
Yeah.
With you working in an advertising background, how have you found that like helpful in building your own firm and making connections?
I think it does help. I think because I don't a lot of times people are they say, oh, you're easy to talk to. It's not like, I don't feel like I'm talking to an accountant, right? And they're like, you know, so I get that a lot. And I'm like, well, that's because I actually wear two hats. I've been an accountant for a long time, but I've also been an account executive. So I've had to, you know, have these interactions. And then I think the other thing too is it helps me on the back end as far as marketing, and I don't do it all the time because, you know, sometimes we know stuff that we don't do, but it does help to understand what this, you know, the technology piece of it. So I am able to run a virtual firm because of those things, because we know how to plug in. We understand the importance of data. We understand the importance of securing data. I also the outreach portion, you know, that's probably really good. And that's probably how you know, we've been able to secure some really good in relationships, because, you know, being able to reach out and talk to people and not being afraid. I think it's this the fear factor a lot of times. And I feel like it helps with clients a lot of times, because I don't just talk finances with them. Sometimes I talk about what they're doing as far as marketing to generate business. I'm like, have you tried this? Have you tried that? What are you doing with this? And so it does open up, it kind of gives you that niche, but a little bit different, you know. So I think that that's been helpful too, to help people to build their business, you know, to get their business up and running a little bit faster. Because a lot of times I feel like most business owners, the biggest question is, how do I get customers, you know? And so that's something that we're able to help people with as well.
Awesome. I wanted to hear from your perspective how you felt that it meshed, because somebody on here might be like, oh, well, she was in advertising, so it's easy for her. You already gave the disclaimer. Look, just because you know something doesn't mean you always do it. But I like the points that you made about making the connections and going out and meeting people, because that's the same across the board for all of us.
Yeah.
If you don't go make connections, your business isn't going to grow. You can't sit behind your computer and be like, well, I got a website. You still got to drive people to that and be a real person outside.
And I think a lot of times too, because a lot of times people are like, oh, you're so extrovert. I'm actually not. I'm a combination of the two, but I'm actually not. And I think a lot of times people feel like that's, you know, that puts you in, you know, there's people will say, you know, I'm an introvert, so it's a little easier for you to do this thing. Not true, you know, and it can be, you know, but I'm actually an introvert too. I kind of like being behind the scenes, you know, but in order to make your business be successful, you got to get out in front of it, you know, unless you're going to have somebody else be your brand mascot. You've got to get out in front of it. When I started, and I'll share this story, when I started, I didn't put my image anywhere. It was just I had a caricature logo, and that was everywhere, right? Because I had a job, so I didn't want to be out front of it. And that's a lot of times too why a lot of people don't go out front. They're like, well, my 9 to 5 is not going to approve of this. And so they're kind of scared to do that. And I was in the same boat. And I'm like, well, I got to still stay behind the scenes. you're going to have a hard time converting people unless they see that you're a real person.
Yes.
So you got to get past that. And if your goal is, and this is something that this is a challenge part, if your goal is to eventually step 100% into your business, you're going to have to make some sacrifices and get in front of it and start to walk that walk before you even do it 100%, you know? So sometimes you're going to have to put your face out there. If you got to block all your coworkers on social media platforms, then so be it. Then so be it. But at some point, you're going to need to get in front of it because people don't buy from people that they don't know, like, or trust.
Mic drop. People buy from people, not logos and like
websites.
The big brands that we know now that were built before the internet, people had to go outside and make those connections. So it's still a person-to-person connection.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Katrina. I got some people in mind right now. I'm going to be like, did you listen to that episode with Katrina? Did you listen to that? I didn't pay her to say that.
No, we did not have any. We didn't have any prep talk other than what's your bio.
Oh man, let me make sure. Let me check my notes. Make sure I'm not missing anything here. Well, yeah, I really appreciate you being here today. One of the things that I always want to ask before my guests leave, in your journey being an enrolled agent, but with you, I'll make an exception. I'll say in the tax industry.
Mm-hmm.
If there was anything that you could do over again, what would that be?
I would have gotten my, and I'm sure everybody answers this the same way. I would have gotten my EA designation sooner. But I'm a firm believer in things happen how they're supposed to, you know. I feel like I had to have the things lay out to make me be in the mindset to receive things properly, right? And so I think it happened how it needed to. I wish I would have done it sooner, but you know. But the one thing is I will say you don't have to wait. Whoever's listening, who's thinking about this, who is a tax professional, you've gotten this. If you feel like this is a walk that you want to do, and it doesn't feel like it's daunting, you hate to see tax season come, then this is something that you know, if this is going to be a path in your life, then getting that licensing is going to change your life. And it's not like some big firework is going to go off or anything like that, but you'll start to see it in the interactions that you have, even though everybody doesn't even know what the licensing means. That the fact that you can educate them on that is going to change how you move with your clients. How do you get clients? How do you open up doors that were closed to you? How do you get in spaces that you know that you wouldn't have even felt comfortable to go walk in the room on? And a lot of times we're hiding behind things because we don't feel like we belong or we fit in. And this is a licensing that's going to help you feel secure and put yourself in the room, even though you deserve to be there anyway. But at least give yourself the confidence and the right platform to stand on, where you don't feel like you're an imposter in the room.
Wonderful. And people do answer it a little bit differently, but yes. I like your encouragement for the folks, like you said, the listeners. You don't have to wait. If you're listening to this in time, you can join the boot camp in October.
And the cool thing about the EA licensing is it's not like you have to have all of the, you don't have to have a degree to do it. It makes it nice because you can study, you probably have better study habits. But the thing is you can do it at 18. So this is something, if you can do young, you can get all the alphabets behind your name. We got lots of alphabets behind our name, but the one that really stands out is what the funny thing is, I got all these degrees on the wall behind me. And so my granddaughter was asking me, what's that? And I always tell her how much it costs. That's $80,000. That's $50,000. But the one that was the cheapest brings me the biggest. That's what I live on.
Wow, that's a whole word. But that's another reason why it's so important to get the information out, because I think I still would have finished my accounting degree.
Yeah.
Right? But there are people going down all different kinds of paths that don't necessarily need to because of the doors that the EA license can open.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of times people are turning stones over looking for this magic. And it's like you're sitting on it, just open the books, and take those 3 tests. I mean, it's not something you're just gonna want to schedule and walk in the door to do. You want to be prepared for them. They're hard tests. They're not easy, but I don't say that to discourage anybody because we did it, right? So, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not some Mensa member, so get in, get in there and get to it. Just get some support, get some people that are going to clap for you and tell you and help you, and make sure that you dedicate that time and lock out that time to do it. You got to get rid of the distractions for that.
Yes, and like I mentioned earlier, we'll have the link for the EA Bootcamp down in the notes. If people want to follow you somewhere online because you have kind of lit up as you were educating us on different topics, if somebody
Yes.
wants to follow that fire, where can they find you online?
They can find me on YouTube at Katrina the Advisor, and I look forward to chatting with a few folks.
Yeah, so we'll have that link down below as well for our people that are actually watching. It is scrolling across the screen. Her YouTube handle is at Katrina the Advisor. Katrina, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you,
on here with
everyone.
me.
This was fun.
You
Thank you.
you are very welcome. And before we leave, because people have gotten on me about this too, yes, I have this podcast available for you. If you would like more in depth mentoring, information, you can go to my website and join my email list at www.americasfavoriteea.com. And I hope to see you all in next week's episode on September 14th, right here at 8 p.m. Eastern.